What's going on, everybody? We have Kels Dayton here. Covers UConn for the Hartford Courant. Really excited to talk about this game. It's obviously a huge accomplishment for both programs, both teams playing really well. Obviously, just to get to this point, but down the stretch, it's been exciting kind of from a Miami standpoint, first one, and they're obviously playing a tough team in UConn. Kels, let's talk right with that Gonzaga game, and we'll get more into what UConn has done in the tournament, but what impressed you there? And they've obviously, again, they've impressed every game, but just that Gonzaga game in particular.
Yeah, I think that Gonzaga game is the best they played all season by far. Looking at what they did, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, they've been a different team in this tournament, I think, than they have been throughout the regular season. This is not the same team that we saw earlier in the Big East conference season. It's kind of similar to the team that started off the non-conference season when we saw them start out 14-0, but they've really just kicked it up another gear in that Gonzaga game. I mean, I think they were up 4 points until Andre Jackson made kind of like a basketball version of the Jeter flip play. I think he kind of came in and stole the ball that it was a pass. Not even sure if it was for him or not, but he kicked it out real quick right at the end of the half. Alex Caravan hit a three. And then from there, they were kind of just rolling, absolutely dominant in the second half. I know Timmy got that fourth foul, I believe it was pretty early in the second half, but I really thought that moment on, they just looked the best they have all season. And honestly, they remind a lot of UConn fans of the '04 team that kind of like steamrolled through the NCAA tournament. I know other comparisons to the like 2011 team that kind of kicked it into gear in the Big East tournament, but they've just been so impressive. And it's not out of left field because we saw it at the beginning of the year, but it's been sort of unexpected from the struggles that we saw during the conference season.
And as you mentioned, a team that started off so strong, but they 5 weeks in the top five, a couple of weeks at number two in the country. So this is obviously a good start to the season. The capabilities were there, but you keep touching on the struggles, the losing 6 of 8 there. What essentially was not going right during that stretch at Big East play? Obviously, tough teams in the Big East and familiarity as well. But what kind of wasn't going well during that stretch there? If there's a few things you could kind of pinpoint.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is Andre Jackson kind of lost his confidence. He's kind of the key guy for this team, and he makes all the little plays. He's kind of a guy who I honestly compare him to Ben Simmons in the NBA when Ben Simmons is going well. Obviously, not the recent struggles that he's had, but when he was the player that he was when he was an all-star back in the day, Jackson struggles shooting, but he does everything else really well. And I think teams kind of stopped guarding him, as you saw kind of even in that Gonzaga game. People are sagging off of him and giving him plenty of space. But Dan Hurley said that he unlocked something, got him to move around the court a lot more on offense. And instead of that being a weakness where he would also at times try to take shots just to prove that he could shoot, even though he's not a good shooter. But I think the fact that they've been able to kind of assimilate him more into the offense, I think that's been the major key for them in figuring that out. And since they did that, I think they've been a different team.
You kind of going back to that play that you mentioned, it kind of just sums up what Andre is. I mean, yeah, the pass there. I'm sure he would say that it was meant for him that when he kicked it out there, took it in the lane and kicked it out. An all-around player, obviously. It's going to be fascinating to see what Miami does on a matchup standpoint. They're going to go man, obviously, and go there. But the backcourt of UConn's going to present troubles with what they're able to do. You keep touching on what Andre is able to do. It's impressive. The cutting, it stands out to me with what they're able to do cutting, not just the ball screens, but just off ball. I think Miami's going to have their hands full in that situation. And like I said, paying attention to what Andre's doing on an offensive standpoint, obviously they can't let him go. So it's going to be interesting. With Hawkins, the scoring, the shooting obviously stands out. What is it about Jordan that just the season he's had, the tournament he's had?
Yeah, I think just an elite shooter. I think you just see like his off the ball movement, I think has been great. I think we've seen him like run through screens. They're running a lot of offense for him. And I just think he's gotten better and better as the season's gone on of just getting open and just finding his ways to get shots off. He's a great catch and shoot guy. Really, I think he's going to be an even better player in the NBA when he gets there. But he's the guy, I think when we look back in like 10 or 15 years at this tournament and this UConn team reaching the Final Four, I think we're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, they had Jordan Hawkins. Like this is like, that's one of the main reasons that they got here. So I think, yeah, he's been really impressive. And I think he's the best player on the team. And I think he's like the main reason why, as far as offensively, they're able to pull away from teams, especially in the second half, because he's actually had some struggles in the first half of the tournament, but he's caught fire in the second half. And I think that's kind of why we've seen some big second halves from UConn.
From a Miami standpoint, they've liked putting Wooga Poplar, their three-man, kind of a 6'5" two guard as well. They've liked putting him on their best player, but you slide him over, and guard Hawkins, then you got Wong likely on Jackson. That's a tough matchup for him. It's just going to be a matchup situation all across the board, and obviously the bigs. We'll get into that. Actually, let's talk about that now. With Sanogo, obviously stands out both sides of the court. Both ends of the court, what he's able to do, but offensively, the passing, scoring inside, what makes him so tough, and essentially, Timmy really struggled. You touched on Timmy really struggled, 5 for 14, the 12 points there in the last game. But what does Sanogo do that's so good?
I just think he's so athletic. He's so strong in there, and he's kind of refined in his post game a little bit. He's got moves. He can go either way. Use either hand. He's got a nice little touch around the basket, and you see he can actually hit some threes as well, which that's not his it's not anything you want to go to, but he can do it if he's wide open. And I think just he's got a lot of skill, and obviously the physical gifts that he has. He's really tough. I think if he was 7 feet tall, 7'1", like he'd be definitely a lot higher on draft boards. I think he's in the second round right now if you look at a lot of mock drafts out there. But as a college player, he's just a really, really solid guy. And I actually think UConn should use Donovan Clingan on the same court, on the court at the same time as him a little bit more than they do. They never really do that. But I think it presents a lot of matchup problems for teams that don't have big men like him, kind of a classic big man like that. So yeah, I think he's been great this tournament as well.
Yeah, you touched on Cleveland. That's going to be an interesting matchup for Miami as well. Bringing Anthony Walker off the bench, he has struggled at times with his efficiency, and the team has struggled when he's been on the floor. And guarding that big and Cleveland certainly going to be a tough battle, an interesting one. And I think matchups will be interesting with what lineups UConn puts out there. A deeper team, Miami likes to go to use their bench, but it just seems like just an example. I'm looking at evanmia.com, a site that analyzes lineups, and their best lineup has a lean in there. Essentially, if they want to go smaller and bring Caravan off, that's been their most efficient team. So it's not just as simple as Miami just lines up and plays who they have. I think it's going to be interesting to see on a coaching standpoint, maybe a feeling out process, what it looks like on the court in these, first 5-10 minutes of the game, and maybe how coaches make the adjustments throughout.
Yeah, and I am a little nervous for UConn with Jim Larinaga over there, because I feel like he's been playing up the underdog role even before the tournament started with the whole "don't pick us" thing. I really think he's kind of a master motivator, and that's one thing that I think could be big in this game is if he can get Miami in that mindset of nobody thinks we can win. That could be tough, and especially in the Dome, I think in that big NFL stadium, it could be tougher to shoot. We've seen in the past, like teams have struggled from deep, and UConn takes a lot of threes. So I think those could be two factors that could lean Miami's way in this game.
You're absolutely correct. And I felt like going into the Drake game, I thought it was going to be a tough one because Miami was the favorite. This is a program, not just a team, not even recently, just as a program, they really relish the underdog role, and nobody picks us. As you mentioned, don't pick us. The hashtag that they've got going on through the tournament. It's a real thing. It's something that they believe in as a program. I think not even big picture. I think even locally, I think even from a Miami fan base, they have a hard time winning over the fan base because it's a football school. So I think just in general, they're overlooked quite a bit. But like you said, they're here now, and a one-game thing, and we saw what Miami's capable of doing even when they're down, like they were against Texas. They can rally together, and they've got a great offensive team. They can get points in different ways, so that will be interesting. And when it comes down to these one-game elimination game situations in the tournament, everything kind of matters, and it's not really about who's had the better season. Both these teams, 13-2 in the last 15 games, playing really well. But anything can happen in this one game. What are some other? We've touched on the big names at UConn, obviously, and maybe some lineup things to watch for. Are there some other things that you think maybe could play into this one from a UConn standpoint?
Yeah, I think really when you look at it, I think the bench is going to be key too. I think we've seen how well Donovan Clingan has played off the bench. I mean, he looks like, and I think he's going to be an NBA player as well. So when you look at that, I think the size of him, I think giving Sanogo a blow, I think that's going to be really interesting to see how well he plays in this on this big stage. He's a freshman. He's from Bristol, Connecticut, small town, actually right near where I grew up. So it's very interesting to see how he will play. And I mean, UConn is kind of a deep team. They've used a lot of guys off the bench. I think that could be a factor in this game as well. And I think, especially with nerves higher, especially at the start of the game and in such a huge stadium, I think a bench can be important here if you can bring in more guys and kind of give guys a rest during these timeouts. That could be a factor, I think, in this game.
And to that point, even if guys are struggling, I think sometimes if guys are struggling, and if you don't have a deep bench, you can't do much else other than leave them out there. Hopefully they play through it. So maybe that'll be something. If somebody gets off to a tough start, you touched on the arena, the stadium there. That's going to be a difficult adjustment for a lot of players. Nigel Pack's a great shooter from Miami, great marks, great numbers, and we'll see how he does making that adjustment. But all the guys shooting from deep, I think that's always a big thing in these moments. So it'll be interesting. Miami's got some experience with the tournament with Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller leading the way. It was interesting kind of being at practice, and you're probably feeling the same way that this is it. These teams, the season ends this weekend, regardless of winning or losing. And final practice, they've left campus, and this will be it. This will be it for this team and seniors and everybody else kind of moving on. So it's going to be interesting, fascinating game. Anything else, Kels, before we wrap this up? I want to make sure we hit on everything. Defensively, I'm curious, UConn's defensive numbers, they're not as high. It's similar to Miami, not as high, not nearly as high, the analytics offensively, but defensively, anything you could say about UConn's defense? Certainly, once again, the tournament run has been impressive.
Yeah, I think defensively, I feel like they've been pretty solid. I think Andre Jackson does such a great job in kind of guarding the other team's best player. I think Sanogo inside is good defensively. Clingan was even very good on Timmy as well in the Gonzaga game. I think it's going to be interesting. Miami does have a bunch of scores. I saw in that Elite Eight game, a bunch of guys scored in double figures, and they did do a great job inside the arc as well. So I think that part is going to be a tough matchup for UConn. And I think that's kind of where a lot of people are kind of thinking that UConn will have an easy time in this game. I definitely don't think this is going to be an easy game. I think this is going to be a close game. This should be the closest game of the tournament. And I think, not to disrespect Florida Atlantic or San Diego State, as everyone else has done throughout this tournament run, but I do think that the winner of this game has a big advantage in that championship game. And this should be the toughest game that UConn has on this run. And we'll see if they can survive and advance, because this Miami team is for real. And I don't know if everyone has realized that yet, but I feel like it's going to be a very tight game and a great matchup. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Definitely stay tuned to the channel and everything that Kel's doing over there with the current, for getting all your news on this. A lot more to do. I know we're knocking this out, but I know both of us got more stuff to do until game time late there Saturday night. So appreciate you taking the time, man. Enjoy it. Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.